Part 2 of how a guy I hooked up with posted me on an explicit website. When I woke up in the morning, I saw a text from Tom. When I read it, my heart dropped and I felt like I was going to pass out. In his text, he said, "Thanks for the content," followed by a link to an explicit website. When we hooked up, he asked if he could record it. I was into that kind of thing, so I agreed but made sure to tell him I didn't want anyone else to see it. When I clicked the link, I saw that he had posted the video on this website and it was already racking up views. I was mortified. I tried to text him and the other guys, but they had already blocked me. To make matters worse, the following week, everyone at my high school found out about the video. I don't know how they got a hold of it, but I'm guessing someone came across it and recognized me. The whole school was sharing it and talking about it, and I was so embarrassed. Then I was called into the principal's office along with the guidance counselor and my parents. I ended up getting my phone taken away for a month, followed by my boss giving me a lecture about why we don't give out personal information to our customers. We contacted the police, but we never heard back from them and it ended up being a dead end. Even though my parents were furious, they were still understanding. Thankfully, we were able to get the video taken down. I never heard from Tom or those guys again. I have a bearded dragon named Phil who I've had for about a year now. My whole family deeply loves him and my younger sister Jane loves making TikToks with Phil. Yesterday my sister came and showed me a TikTok she made of him. There's a trend where people put butter on dogs and an audio saying "butter dog" plays over it. Jane had done the same to Phil. It made me really upset because I had seen a video of someone explaining that this trend can be dangerous towards bearded dragons. This is because the butter sticks to their skin and if they're put under their basking light, it basically heats up and burns their skin. I told Jane to delete the video and that she can't do stuff like this with Phil. I quickly got him out from under his basking light that she had put him back under and bathed him, trying to get the butter off. My sister said I was overreacting and that it's a fun trend. I snapped at her and told her that I'm not letting her near Phil until she apologizes and promises not to do trends like this again. She got angry and told me that she wasn't apologizing for just wanting to have fun with him and I had no right to take him away from her. I put Phil back in his tank in my room and told her that she's not allowed to come take him anymore. My parents found out this morning and they're on her side. However, if she hadn't shown me the video, then Phil would have sat in his tank getting burned under the basking light and I wouldn't have known until it was too late. Am I overreacting? I ordered a lock for Phil's tank and put it on once I got it so that my sister couldn't just get to him. I waited a bit to see if she would apologize, but she didn't. I sat my parents and sister down to go over again why I wasn't allowing her to see Phil and how what she did wasn't okay. I made a slideshow and everything about how putting butter on a bearded dragon was harmful. I told her that I wasn't mad at her for doing it because she didn't know any better, but I was upset over how she reacted. It took a lot of explaining, but after a lot of talking and a little bit of arguing, it seemed like they finally understood. My sister got upset and apologized for how she reacted. It seemed to genuinely upset her after she realized what she did to Phil and what could have happened. My parents also apologized for not taking my side and scolding me for what rules I had set in place. The lock is staying on the tank just in case, but my sister can see him and play with him if she asks me. However, she isn't allowed to make videos with him if I'm not there to watch her do it. She seems a bit irritated but follows the rules. I also got her to take down the video. She ended up making another video about how it was stupid of her to do it in the first place and warned others against it. Phil is okay and playing around as always. Story time about my Hills Have Eyes moment in Texas. I was driving from New Orleans to Oregon. It was just me and my year-old pit bull in a 14-foot U-Haul truck crammed with everything I owned. I was driving on a lonely stretch of highway through central Texas when I realized I hadn't seen a town or exit for a long while. My giant U-Haul was running low on gas and I was starting to freak out. That's when I saw a small town coming up. I gassed up and I'm ready to go, except I cannot for the life of me find my way back to the highway. I circled the town 4 times and I start to get frustrated because I can literally see the highway but I can't get back to it. I decide to go into the gas station and ask the attendant for directions. There's a skinny guy with black hair dangling in front of his eyes that looks like he could use a good wash. When I ask for directions, he's a little rude. He never looked up and kept looking down at the magazine but gave me directions that didn't sound right at all. He told me to follow a road that would get me to the highway in 17 miles. I was dumbfounded. I point out that I didn't drive that far from the highway to get into town and I can see it from here. He seems annoyed and gives me some explanation about the road curving around that doesn't really make sense. When I got to my car, my body was trembling violently and my heart was racing seemingly for no reason. I had the most terrible feeling and I didn't know what to do. Part 2 of my Hills Have Eyes moment in Texas. I had the worst feeling about the attendant's directions. I decided to trust my gut and not follow them. However, this was the only store in this tiny town and I was stuck. Suddenly, a big red beater of a pickup truck pulls up. This huge Texan man in a flannel and work boots gets out. Without even thinking, I hop out and ask him for directions. I think he could tell that I was upset because he made me laugh and cheerfully told me there was a hairpin curve turnoff right at the end of the small concrete tunnel that I had passed several times. He said it often confused travelers because it was so hard to see. With a sinking feeling in my stomach, I asked him how many miles it was to the highway. He gave me a funny look and said it's a quarter mile at most. At this point, I couldn't help myself and asked where the directions that the attendant gave me would lead. The Texan man looked at me intently and asked me how I knew about that route, so I told him. He then asked me what the attendant looked like and pulled him out from his truck. He said it would have taken me away from the interstate and led to a deserted area with junked cars and mobile homes all owned by the same family. This family was known to the locals as troublemakers, meth heads, and worse. He said the attendant was also part of that family. Thankfully, I trusted my gut and I was saved by a ruddy, scruffy-haired Texan angel. Storytime about the craziest thing I saw while working at a mental health facility. I work in a mental health facility as a psychiatric technician. My job is to help people with mental health distress by providing emotional support, helping develop positive coping skills, and provide medical attention. Some of the individuals that I treat have severe mental illness, which can lead to violence. One day I was assigned to a patient that I'll never forget. He was on a 24-hour observation because he was self-harming and deemed high risk. He had tried to harm others earlier in the day, so he was locked into a padded room with only a bed, a bathroom, and a tear-proof blanket. I was assigned to watch him for the day from outside of the room to ensure that he wouldn't harm himself until he could be seen by a doctor. He was talking about things that made absolutely no sense, running around in circles inside of the room and asking me if I was Jesus. He would start screaming at the top of his lungs about random things, curse at me 1 minute then apologize the next, and kept spitting on the window just to wipe it off a few seconds later. I attempted to calm him down, but he was on a rampage. At one point, he turned his back to me and appeared to be rubbing his eye for some time. However, when he turned around, I almost passed out. He had ripped his eyeball completely out of the socket and began tossing it up and down in the air while calmly singing to himself. The situation only got worse from here. Part 2 of the craziest thing I saw while working at a mental health facility. The man continued throwing his eyeball in the air and catching it while calmly singing slow jams. In disbelief, I immediately called for the guards to come and help me. As they came running, I told the man to stop playing with the eyeball and put it down. He then flashed me a smile and put his eyeball close to his mouth. I knew where this was going, so I begged him not to do it. He proceeded to put his eyeball in his mouth and began intensely chewing it. The guards unlocked his door and rushed in. He was jumping and running around trying to avoid them. When they finally got him restrained and under control, they told him to open his mouth and spit out the eyeball. Sure enough, he quickly swallowed it. I asked him why he would do that, and he told me that President Ronald Reagan told him to. He said it's okay because he still has another eye left and he could see just fine, and that he only wanted to have one anyway. That's when the ambulance arrived to come and take him to the hospital. When the paramedics asked him what happened to his eye, he proceeded to throw up on demand in front of everyone. He pointed to his chewed up eyeball and the pile of vomit on the floor and asked them if they could put it back in his eye socket for him. After going to the hospital, he was transferred to a different facility for a higher level of care. To this day, whenever I see someone rubbing their eye, I get squeamish. Storytime about how I was saved by drag queens. My friend and I had made plans to meet up over the weekend to grab a drink. When I showed up, my friend texted me last minute bailing due to a family emergency. Since I was already downtown, I decided to grab a drink by myself. I take myself out on dates all the time, so I didn't think it was a big deal. While I was walking to the bar, this guy approached me and asked what I was up to for the night. I told him what happened and he invited me to hang out with him and his friends. I made it clear to him that I wasn't looking for anything other than friendship, and he quickly replied that he respects it. With this, I felt more comfortable and started hanging out with him and his friend group, which was a mix of guys and girls. We all made our way to the bar and started drinking. That's when I befriended another group of people. I introduced both groups to each other and everything seemed to be going great. A few people from the new group came up to me and asked me how long I've known the guy for. I told them that I just met him an hour ago. They gave me a funny look and told me that he's been talking about me like we've known each other forever and are dating. I was a little creeped out, but I thought that maybe he was just drunk. That's when they said he's also been going around the bar talking to random guys about selling me. This is when my heart dropped and I started to panic. I was terrified because I was alone, drunk, and felt like this man had something terrible in store for me. Part 2 of how I was saved by drag queens. When the people from the new group told me that this guy was talking to them about selling me, I was shocked. I stood there for a minute in disbelief as I racked my brain thinking of what to do. I was too drunk to drive home and I was paranoid of everyone around me at this point. When he wasn't paying attention, I slowly made my way out of the bar. I bolted it to my car and decided that I would sleep it off until I sobered up. When I was a few feet away from my car, I hear footsteps running behind me. I glanced back to see the guy from the bar running towards me. Panic jolted through me and I quickly unlocked my car door. I jumped in and locked the doors behind me. He tried to open the door and then started pounding on my driver's side window, threatening me. A few minutes passed, but he wasn't letting up. Suddenly, someone pushes him to the ground and I look up to see that it's a group of drag queens. I thought I was seeing things for a second, but they tell him that they saw everything and if he gets near me again, they're going to rearrange that ugly mug. He stumbles to his feet and sprints off. I think they could tell that I was shaken up because they invite me to come to their show at the bar nearby to calm down. They spent the next couple hours with me as I watched each one perform and made sure that I got home safe by the end of the night. I'll always be thankful to them. Storytime about how my friend scheduled her wedding on the day of my family's death anniversary. 7 years ago, I lost my husband, daughter, and mother to a car accident. They were hit by a drunk driver that drove through a red light and killed all of them on impact. Their deaths greatly affected me. If it weren't for my friends and years of therapy, I would be in a much lower place. I'm thankful for their support and have been able to process my grief properly. 2 years ago, I took a better paying job and moved to